name's Claire and this is Stitch Hem Sew. Thank you so much for joining me today for another video. Now today's video is a bit of a different one for me. I've got a question and answer session for you. So I put a call out on my Instagram and also on my community tab over on YouTube and asked if anybody had any questions for me, whether it be related to sewing or non-sewing, and lots of you have come back with questions for me, so thank you so much for that. I really do appreciate it that you're taking the time to do that. So as I say, it will be a question and answer vlog, so if that interests you, please stick around with me today. Before I get started, I'll just mention quickly what I'm wearing. This is a Friday Pattern Company Westcliff dress. It's the long version with the sort of the tier at the bottom, which is quite unusual for me. So it's a maxi dress, and it's super comfy and great for actually when I'm at home, because it feels like you've got your pajamas on. So yeah, really, this is an older make, but one that occasionally I'll get out of my wardrobe and think, why don't I wear this one more regularly? Another thing I just wanted to mention before I get started with today's vlog is the sewing challenge that I am co-hosting with the lovely Crystal from My Social Thread and Adele from Sew for Serenity. Now this is the second year of us running the challenge. It was originally started by the lovely Crystal and Adele, and then I came on board a little bit later in the process last year, but this year we're kind of co-hosting it all together. Now the challenge itself is called Selfless Sew April 23, and the idea behind it is to sew up items, whether that be garments or non-garment items, but for other people. Now that can be for friends, family, your children, it can be for your pets, it can be for charity. The idea is just that you're sewing for other people other than yourself. Then you would post your make on the last day of April, so the 30th of April, using that hashtag Selfless Sew April 23, and tagging in the three of us. So that's Sew for Serenity, My Social Thread and Stitch Hem Sew. And then there are an absolute array of prizes that we have been able to get from some absolutely incredible, amazing sponsors. I think we've got about 50 individual prizes, so just incredible. And there will be a certain number of categories, so for sort of best makes, but also a huge number will just be picked at random, so everybody is in the chance of winning a prize. So I really hope that you'll take part in that, and over the next couple of weeks more and more information will come out about that, but I just wanted to talk about it briefly before I crack on with this video. So today's video, question and answers, all about sewing. Now I don't think there were any questions that were non-sewing related, so I'll just start off with a quick intro to myself, because I've had quite a lot of new subscribers in recent months, and you may be new to my channel today. So my name's Claire. I started this channel, Stitch Hem Sew, in 21, the very end of 21, and so it's been going for just over a year, but I guess nearly a year and a half now, and it's just a joy to do. If I'm honest with you, it does take longer to do all the things that I ever really anticipated or imagined in terms of being a YouTube vlogger, but I do love that sense of community that it brings to sewing. One of the questions that I was asked is, how do you cope with the fact that sewing can be quite a solitary hobby? And the lovely Sophie asked that question, so thank you very much. Now, yeah, sewing can be quite solitary, and that is one part of it that I do like. It's my me time, it's my time to do something for myself, to switch off from sort of my work and my sort of family responsibilities and things. Although I do love to sew for my family as well, but the joy of sort of Instagram and having a YouTube channel is that you don't feel like you're necessarily doing it alone. I love to watch other YouTube vloggers whilst I'm sewing, because it feels like you're sewing with a friend, and in more recent times I've had the opportunity to meet up with other sewing vloggers and to go to sewing socials and the weekend of the 25th of March I'm off to the Stitch Festival, so going to be meeting up with lots of other people. So whilst the actual act of sewing can be quite solitary, there are definitely ways to sort of bring yourself into the community and be part of it as well, and I love that side of it too, so that you don't feel alone. And people are so lovely in the sewing community. Everybody is always seems to be so kind and generous with their time. If you've ever got a sort of sewing related question or problem, there's always somebody that has got an answer for you. So I love that about the sewing community. So a little bit more about myself as a person. Sewing is my hobby. I do it on the side. I don't make any money from it. I don't have like a small business associated with it other than my YouTube channel, which I have to say doesn't really make me any money of any level of significance. And I hasten to add, that's not why I do it. I live at home with my husband and my two boys who are 8 and 4, and I have a full-time job where obviously that takes up a lot of my time as well. So sewing is definitely my hobby and I very, very much enjoy it. I've always done crafty related things throughout my whole life, and I've tried lots of different hobbies over the years that are kind of craft based, if you like, but sewing is definitely my passion at the moment, and I think it will be definitely for the foreseeable future because I just love it. I love pretty much everything about it. So yeah, I absolutely love sewing, and you probably do too because that's why you're here listening to this. So another question that I have had is, how did you start sewing? And that was from the lovely Rachel from the French Seams. Now, in terms of garment sewing, I've only been sewing since 2020 in terms of actual garment sewing. I learnt to use a sewing machine as a child. I feel like I've always known how to use a sewing machine from a pretty young age. My mum wasn't a sewer, although she did have a sewing machine but didn't really like using it, but she knew enough to obviously be able to show me how to use it. But I also used to go and see a lovely older lady who was very passionate about all types of crafts, and I learned lots of different crafts with her, but including sewing. And she was the one that really taught me about, you know, sewing in a straight line, how to sew around curves, how to put things together. She was the one that really ignited my passion for sewing, I guess, when I was younger. I did lots of hand sewing as well, hand quilting and things, just loads of different types of hobbies, lace making, all sorts of things. So, and then when my children were younger, particularly my older son, I guess I kind of lost myself a little bit in terms of it was just looking after the children and going to work, and my hobbies kind of went by the wayside a bit. But I still, you know, I would pick up the odd bit of knitting here and there, but there was nothing that was really kind of sticking with me until I sort of got into sewing again in 2020. And since then nothing has stopped me. So I started off making just sort of small things. I was looking on YouTube for ideas and things, and that's when I found the sort of the vlogging community of sewers and things, and obviously the Instagram community as well. And that really, then I just took off from there, because as soon as you start looking and watching at other YouTubers, you find out about all these different independent pattern companies and the amazing patterns out there. And that's when I sort of started making garments rather than just sort of home items and things that perhaps I was doing before. So yeah, that's sort of my story of how my sewing journey in more recent times has come about. The next question was from the lovely Catherine from Soberton Makery, and her question was, what is your favourite pattern you've ever made? Now this is a really, really difficult question for me to answer, because it's often the last thing that I have made that is sort of my favourite, because that's sort of the thing that's in my mind. However, I find this question, as I say, really difficult to answer, So I've recently made a couple of Lyra dresses and I absolutely love those. I'm really a great fan of the Friday Pattern Company Sagebrush top. I really like the Harper cardigan. I made quite a number of those a couple of years ago, which is a Sinclair pattern. It's actually a free pattern, great for Sew Frugal if you're taking part in that. So I don't think that I can say that I have got a favourite pattern for myself. If I was saying my favourite pattern for my kids, it would definitely be the Waves and Wild Hot Chocolate hoodie pattern, which you can also obviously do as a jumper, because I've sewn them up so many times for my boys. It's just a real staple. And the True Bias Hudson pants for them as well, again a massive staple in their wardrobe. So, but for myself, I can't say that I have got a favourite pattern because there's just so many amazing ones out there and it's very hard to narrow it down. So sorry, Catherine, not to properly answer your question. The next question was from the lovely M, and it was what pattern challenged you the most and what did you learn from it? Now, if any of you have watched my channel for some time, you will know that I made the S9052. It's a simplicity pattern. It's a Parker coat, a Mimi G style pattern, and it was for my husband. Now, this was a pattern that I procrastinated on for a really long time. It was something that he asked for whilst we were watching the Sewing Bee, and I very rashly said yes to doing it and bought the fabric and kind of committed myself in a very short space of time to doing it, and then I had to follow through on it. So I made a toile, and then at almost in my mind I felt like I'd made the coat because I'd made a toile, and then I still had to make the actual coat, and it sat there for ages and ages and ages uncut. I eventually cut the pattern out, and again it sat there for a couple of months before I got round to sewing it, which is very much unlike me. I tend to be, I cut a project out, and I may cut several projects out at the same time, but I basically will sew those up. I don't tend to have an in progress pile, whereas the coat definitely was like a works in progress. It had lots of pieces to it. To me, it was definitely my most involved make, definitely my most challenging make. Although when I actually did come to do it, when I set my mind to it this year, I actually really enjoyed the process. It was kind of, you know, it made me slow down, it made me take my time. I enjoyed the fact that it wasn't your, you know, your quick win, although I did enjoy doing a quick win project after I'd finished it. But I really kind of enjoyed just sort of learning some of those sort of coat making techniques, etc. And just sort of learning to sort of take my time and enjoy the process and seeing it all come together. So I'll pop a picture in of that make. And yeah, it definitely was my most challenging make to date. And I have said to him that I won't be making another one, mainly because there's just so many pieces to it. But I am extremely pleased with that one, and thankfully he does wear it quite a lot. The next question was from the lovely Fox, and the question was, do you prefer summer or winter sewing? Now, I tend to be a very in-season type makes person. I like winter makes in the winter and summer makes in the summer. I'm not very good at planning ahead for the next season, because when I'm cold I want to make lovely snuggly wintry mates, and when it's hot obviously I want to make nice flowy dresses and things. So I guess in the winter it's a joy to, I tend to make lots more jersey makes, and it's sort of a joy to be able to sort of whip up those makes very quickly on the overlocker with sort of not that much needing for the on the sewing machine, and so you can feel quite productive with those makes because they come together quite quickly. But equally it is lovely to have a project that takes a little bit longer. So again, I don't think I can answer that question because I think it just depends on the time of year. I would struggle to make true summer clothes in the middle of winter, and equally the other way round. If I was making winter makes in the summer, I just think that it wouldn't hold my interest in the same sort of way. So I think, yeah, I'd struggle to think ahead seasonally and definitely work within the season that I'm in. So the next couple of questions are from the lovely Louise. Now the first one is, what is your favourite pattern company? Now again, this is a really hard question to narrow it down to, but if I have to think about the ones that I have sewn the most patterns from, so that would make you think that maybe they're your favourite pattern companies, I guess would be Friday Pattern Company, Tilly and the Buttons, Sew Over It. Those are the companies I've probably sewn the most, oh, and Waves and Wild, the most patterns from. So I guess those would be my favourite, and if I had to pick from them, I guess Tilly is the one that I have probably sewn the most from, and definitely in more recent times I've been having a little bit of a Tilly phase, so yeah, I guess that would be my one. Actually, I've got another Tilly related question from another lovely viewer, and I'm really sorry but I haven't written your name down, so apologies for that. And that is from the question was, if Tilly could sew you one of her garments, which one would you choose? Now this is tricky, isn't it? Now I think I would choose something that I haven't actually sewn for myself, and I've never sewn a pinafore dress, and I know that she's got the I think she's got the Cleo and the Bobby, so maybe one of those two, because it's something that I haven't sewn for myself, and I think perhaps I should at some point, and so it would be nice if someone else sewed it for me. Now another question from the lovely Louise is, do you ever have problems with fitting, and how do you overcome those? Yes, absolutely, I have problems with fitting. I think everybody does to a certain extent, some more than others obviously. I have got a full bust, but I don't have an absolutely massive bust, but obviously I do have to take that into account, and I sometimes will have to make a full bust adjustment. I often have to lower the placement of the dart. I have to grade out from patterns, so I normally have to, my waist and hip measurements are bigger than the size that I would make for my bust, so I have to grade out from that point of view, and sometimes that doesn't necessarily work straight away. I always, well, on the whole, I always have to lengthen patterns. I'm between 5'8" and 5'9", and I always have to add length to the bodice and to the skirt and to arms, and again, that's something that I don't always get right or remember to do, which is silly because I should do. So I would say that my general adjustments is to always to add length to patterns and to grade between pattern sizes. I have about a 3-inch difference between my upper bust and my full bust, so yeah, as I say, sometimes I should probably do a full bust adjustment, and I don't, because I'm a bit lazy and that would help my clothes fit a bit better. But as I say, sometimes I've had to lower the placement of the dart to accommodate for the fact that I've got a bigger bust. So fitting is something that over the next sort of year or so I really would like to learn more about, and fitting to my body shape. It's not something that I have really focused on in terms of my makes of getting like a true fit, and it is something as time goes on that I would like to get better at and explore more of. I should probably go to some sort of class to learn a bit more, because everything I tend to do is from either books or YouTube. Mostly YouTube, because I'm a bit lazy and I like to see things visually rather than having to read it. Yeah, I definitely need to get better at that, so thanks for that question. Next question is, what is your favourite fabric to wear? Now, my favourite fabric, I would say, to sew would either be a cotton jersey, because again it's quite stable, sort of sweatshirting, or cotton fabric, because again, it's stable, it presses well, it behaves itself, it stays where it should, etc. But in terms of wearability, I prefer a viscose or rayon, to be honest with you. I like how that feels against my skin. I like the drape of it, the flowiness. Yeah, I would say that that would be my favourite fabric to wear. So the lovely Silver Thread Sewing got in contact to ask, what tools do I consider must-haves? So the obvious ones for that obviously are your sewing machine, your scissors, and I like to use a rotary cutter, and I've got several cutting mats. I tend to not cut my fabric out with scissors. I tend to use a rotary cutter because I find that I'm more accurate that way. Another thing that I like to use is a paper cutter when I'm cutting out, piecing together PDF patterns. I think that makes the process a lot easier. But in terms of other tools, so beside my sewing machine, obviously there is always, you know, there's the pair of scissors that is always easy to hand. An absolute must in my sewing room is a lint roller to pick up all those little pieces of fluff and threads, etc. Obviously a tape measure are the essentials. And then by my machine I have this little pot, and in that it's got my very old pin cushion. I made this so long ago when I think it was the first thing after I decided that I was going to get a sewing machine. This was the first thing that I made. It's very lumpy bumpy, and I could definitely do with making myself a new one. It's on like a little scrunchy thing so that you can put it on your arm if you want to. Yeah, it's a little bit sorry for itself, but it works and I continue to use it. I've also got my favourite pair of scissors for, you know, little cutting threads and things. These are from a company called that are LDH scissors, and these are they're 5-inch ones, and I absolutely love these. They fit so comfortably in my hand, they're so nice to use. I've got a couple of seam gauges in there that I tend to reach for, a couple of friction markers. I find these super useful. These, I much prefer clips if I can get away with using clips rather than pins, because I always prick myself with pins. If I can get away with using clips rather than pins, I will do so, and this is just a small selection of the number of clips I've got. And of course a seam ripper, because who can cope with sewing without a seam ripper? And I like to have one that is a bit bigger rather than those little ones that you get, because they're really hard. I find from a dexterity point of view, those are really hard to use. They're fiddly, but this has got a little bit of weight behind it. It's obviously a little bit bigger, and one end is an awl, which is really useful, but the most used end is the seam ripper end. So you take it out and you put it in, and that is just my, other than my sewing machine, probably my most used item other than these for cutting off threads, etc. This comes out a lot. So another question that I received was from my lovely sister, who, if you've watched my channel before, you will know that she is into crochet, and she previously made me a pair of slippers. Now her question to me was, will I make her a pair of slippers? Because I recently made myself a pair of slippers on here. So yes, of course, I will make you a pair of slippers at some point in the near future. Another question that I had was again from the lovely Rachel from the French Seams, and she said that she would like to see some more about my dad's wood turning that I've mentioned before, and said to me, did he make the clappers that you have in the back of your shot quite a lot of the time, so that you can't see them there now because they're in my hands? So yes, indeed, he did make my wooden clappers. He made two different styles from me. These were made out of a old worktop that he had, so very frugally reused some wood, and I sent him some pictures of what I had in mind, not expecting him to make two, but he did. I just expected him to choose one type, but he in very quick time had whipped up two for me, so I'm very grateful to him, and I'm very lucky to have him make things for me. There are often times in my life when I've said, Dad, do you think you could just? So because Rachel asked about the things that my dad has made, I had a quick look around my house to see what other things I had that he had made for either me or my family from wood. So I will very quickly go over those. Sorry if this isn't of interest to everyone, but I'm sure people will understand sort of a crafty mind behind these makes. So one of the makes was this little grasshopper. In fact, we do have two because he's made one for each of my sons when they were born, and you pull it along the floor and the cogs go up and down. So that one's really fun, really cute make. Another thing that he has made is this train, and it actually has a carriage on it, but I didn't bring that through. And all these are all working parts. You can pull this along the floor, so super clever, amazing. Sorry, perhaps a little dusty too. And then a couple of Christmases ago, maybe 3 Christmases ago, I said to him, for next Christmas, do you think you could make me a wooden Christmas tree? Well, what did I get for Christmas that year? I wasn't expecting him to do that quick, but a Christmas tree. And I love this so much that it doesn't just go away for Christmas. This stays out all year round because I just love it so much. I love the feel of wooden items. They're so tactile. It's a bit like feeling fabric in a fabric shop. You just want to touch and feel what they're like. So yeah, that's my tree. And then probably the most special item that I've received from him was a really long time ago. He made me a mirror, and he probably made this for me when I was about 17, something like that. And it's this carved mirror here, and it just means so lovely. It's just so lovely. He even wrote a poem which is on the back, but I won't go into that detail right now. But it's got my initials as they used to be before I was married at the top. In the reflection of the mirror, I don't know how well it's going to come up, but it spells out Clare just here. And yeah, this one is super special to me. Actually, he made it in 1999. It says on the back, December 1999, so that shows how old it is. But yeah, I love this one. And the last thing that the lovely Rachel asked was, would I do another collaboration with her this year? Last year, Rachel and I did a collaboration where we both sewed up the Charlie Caftan by Closet Cool Patterns. And my answer, Rachel, is of course I would love to do another collaboration with you. It was super fun last time. It was lovely getting to know Rachel. And if there are any other YouTubers out there who are also interested in doing a collaboration, please do get in touch with me. Either, you know, drop me a message on Instagram or, you know, obviously in the comments or anything like that. But yeah, it was absolutely a delight to do a collaboration with you, Rachel, and of course I will do another one with you in the future. So I think that just about rounds up my questions for today. But if you do find that there is something that I haven't answered or something that you'd like to ask me, then please do drop me a comment in the question box below. If there's lots, maybe I'll go for part 2. But yeah, I just want to say a massive thank you to everybody who has asked a question for today's video. I hope that I've answered them okay and well enough for you, but if I haven't answered it in enough detail and you want to hear more, then please do drop me a comment in the questions below. I would really, yeah, I love talking to you guys in the comments. Every time I get a comment or a like or anything, you know, it makes me do a little happy dance. So I really do appreciate everybody that takes the time to do that. It is great, and it also does help my channel to grow because it helps with the YouTube algorithm, which I genuinely don't understand. But for all us vloggers, when you guys like and comment, it really does help us out. Even if you literally just put like an emoji in the comments, because you don't necessarily want to write a full comment, that make a massive difference. So thank you so much. So I think that's all from me today, folks. I hope you've enjoyed today's video. If you have, please do give me a like. If you haven't subscribed, I'd love it if you would consider doing so. But until next time, take care, happy sewing, bye bye.